Kroenke-Out? We think the Kroenkes are football virgins, as their managers bleed the club. Football fans, welcome to the June 21st edition of the Uncensored Arsenal podcast. I'm your host Shatta, together with Bllackburn George, the Arts blogger, Ehab, Byso, and Omid Javed. Apologies to Wenger ruler from Pakistan, who never got a word in because of technical difficulties. Stay tuned for more.
Gooners of the world, football fans, this is Shatta and the team with the Uncensored Arsenal live stream for today. We have present with us a young lady I call the prodigal daughter. I'm calling her young lady. She looks much younger than me. I do, so I guess I can say that. I have as a special guest from Pakistan and a long-time gooner, Wenger ruler. He's been on Twitter for a while. And I should tell you that why I'm especially happy to get Wenger ruler here is because there are at least two persons who are usually here who work in football. And unlike a lot of live streams and podcasts, there are very few people who work in football. But we happen to have at least two persons. One of them today is Wenger ruler, who is a deputy secretary of the Karachi Football Coaches Trust, a body that provides social security grassroots football coaches in Karachi, Pakistan. And he dabbles in podcasting and is a panelist for the show Kickoff on PTV Sports. Wenger ruler, I am assuming that is Pakistani TV. Is that what PTV stands for? You're breaking up. You are very... Come back on when you get that solved. And by the way, I'm still waiting on Ehab, which is one of the only people that I have met on Twitter who ever worked in football. He worked for the Stellar Group at one time as a football scout and agent. And I've said it before. And I'm still saying again, because again, we have at least two professionals who have worked in the game. And people like me, George, and Byso are just fans of the game, and we can speak whatever comes to our mind. I speak for you. Can I speak for you, George?
Oh, yeah.
I can't speak. By dint of experience, and you too, Omi, I am leaving you out. But so we have a good mix of people, but what unites us, and I want to emphasize, is a love of Arsenal Football Club and a concern about the direction we're going. And in that regard, obviously, today's topic is Wenger out. What it's all about. You know, after the ESL fiasco, there has been a rise in the tide of Kroenke-Out. Did I say Wenger out? Kroenke-Out.
Yeah,
I sure did. Kroenke-Out. You know, I call it masturbations, demonstrations. And I suppose it is valid because the club is eighth. The Kroenkes attempted to take us out of the meritocratic system that is English football and even European football. And the fans resented it. And of course, the authorities in England, that is the EPL, I was about to say the PGMOL, and all the authorities did their best to destroy that move. And there was obviously fans felt that the Kroenkes were fully responsible. This long introduction, is that reaction, immediate reaction to the Kroenkes fair? I'm going to ask you, Wenger ruler, because you must have thought about it. Was that immediate visceral reaction? It has been there before. Was that a fair reaction to the Kroenkes? I'd like to hear your point of view. Are you there with us? Wenger ruler is not with us. George, was that a fair reaction? to the Kroenkes, and I know you had a massive reaction to them.
Well, it's a predictable reaction, but the root of it is nothing to do with us trying to set up in the European League. That's just smoke and mirrors. It's because they don't spend enough of their own money on the club. That's what the fans want. And I had to laugh today. I saw somebody with 250,000 followers tweeting that the Kroenkes have authorised transfer spend of 250 million net in the window. This on top of the 150 million they're going to have to cover for losses. So they're going to spend £400 million in this window, according to this ITK expert. Now, they won't. It's absolute rubbish. However, if they did, Kroenke-Out would immediately become Kroenke-In, because it's nothing at all to do with the class of the club. You know, they're not running it the way it should be run. That's rubbish. As soon as they thought that they think that they're ploughing their own money into it, they'll be a popular owner. And all the rest is just smoke and mirrors. You know, they're not buying the right players, or they're not appointing the right people, or they're not doing things with the class they used to do. Absolute nonsense. They're not spending enough of their own money. And the PR at the moment being churned out is that they're going to be spending their own money. And that's all they have to do. And even if they don't spend it properly, even if they squander it, the fans will forgive them, because they'll think that's ambition. You know, if the question is Kroenke in or out, I would say out because of the appointments they make, but in because we could get worse. You know, they don't take any money out of the club, and they're in a position where they can take as much as they want. So in for one reason, out for another. They're not going anywhere anyway, so it's a redundant question. So that's my stance.
Is the reaction to the Kroenkes justified? Immediate?
No.
Not you, George. I'm going to ask Byso. Is that an immediate reaction? Byso, let me consider you an average fan. I consider you as an even-handed fan. Is that reaction justified?
I must say I agree with George. I don't think it's justified. The kind of reaction that the Arsenal fan base has towards our owners. We keep complaining and saying they don't spend any money, but when you actually look at all of our transfers in the last, I would say 5 years, they have spent money. The only problem is that we've spent the money not in an efficient manner. And so we're paying for it now. I would say those kind of owners are the owners that you actually really want. Those owners who let you run the club as it should be run by the football people and not interfering with football decisions. The biggest problem with the Kroenkes is that they don't have the right people running the football operations at the club. And that's what the biggest problem is. You see? Because they're not the ones making the decision to pay 70-something million for Pepe. They are not the ones making the decision to hand Ozil a 350 £1,000 a week contract, and 2 months after you hire a manager who does not use the number 10. It's just in direct conflict with the decisions they are making. So at the end of the day, we need to. There's also an argument that if they were good owners, they would find the competent people to run the club. But then again, it's a yin and a yang, right? If we get the right people running the club, I believe we'll make smarter decisions, whether we have Kroenke as our owner or not. The problem is, who is going to hire these right people?
Well, that happens to be the Kroenkes, and I think that is an issue. What about the people they have been hiring, Omi? What Don Raul, from it was known. It was not a secret to insiders that he was associated with a scandal at Barcelona with Bartomeu. Is that his name? I'm not pronouncing it well. I didn't even look it up. But he has been sanctioned by UEFA, and I think by FIFA for his role in a corrupt activity. And Don Raul was a part of that team. It was known. Then they turn around and they employed a complete novice. His name is Edu Gaspar. He has never managed a football club in his life. His resume reads management of Brazil, and he walked out of that job. We then of course Emery was Raul's favorite, and then we had a complete novice in the form of Arteta running the club. So isn't it a point being well made by Byso that is your choice of personnel has been horrible? Omi, you guys in Pakistan are having a hard time with your communication. Yeah, you're not here with us.
Yeah, the communication is challenging.
Yes. Well, let me go back to you on that. Let me until Omi gets that straight. George, you heard my point. The choice of officers, of managers has been horrible. Don't you think? Am I overstating it? George, this like George.
You're muted. You're muted, George.
I get the idea here that you want me to give the Kroenkes a good kicking for you.
Yes, sir. I can't get Omi or
I'm feeling I'm being steered in a direction here that I've got to go whether I like it or not. Look, I think
George, I'd like to get Omi and Wenger Ruler back on. Go, keep going.
I think the Kroenkes are crap, but they're crap because they've appointed the wrong people. But they haven't appointed the wrong people on purpose. You know, the fans and the media demanded that we get rid of Wenger, who was carrying the club. They listened to the fans. They listened to the media, and they got rid of Wenger. They did what we wanted, what the fan base as a whole wanted. And then everything's gone downhill since that point. So I just think they have to get the right appointments, and I think they want to make the right appointments. But, you know, who are they going to get? It's not that easy. I mean, if it was that easy, every single football club in the league would be challenging to win it. It's difficult. And I think, like Byso says, they're prepared to spend money. They're prepared to let the club spend all of its own money, plus some more. Let's face it, they've been losing money every year for the last 3 years. And still, we've been in the transfer market, spending 70-odd million, 50-odd million on players. That's their bit. Now, their other bit, what they're doing wrong, is appointing the wrong people. But they're not doing that on purpose, just like the people who are buying the players aren't buying the wrong players on purpose. They're just getting it wrong at the moment. And I think it's unfair to point the finger at them and say they should be able to do everything perfectly well when every club, you look at Liverpool, it took them 30 years to win the league, and they were constantly throwing money at it. Tottenham Hotspur haven't won the league for, 50 years. And they're throwing money at it, changing managers, trying to get it right. It's not that easy. And I think, despite how bad their appointments have been, and I think one of the mistakes Kroenke is making is letting his son run the business rather than appointing someone to oversee it who knows what they're doing. But they'll have to learn. They'll have to get it right, or they're the ones that will lose. You and I won't lose £2 billion if the club goes to the shitter. They will.
And absolutely correct.
So they've got to get it right. So I think I'd like to see them go, but I don't particularly want them out, because at the back of my mind, I'm thinking it could be worse. It could be worse because they have let us spend money. They let Arsene Wenger get on with it. They let Arsene Wenger get on with it for what? Nearly 10 years when he was in control. Kroenke took over in 2008. Arsene was here till 2018. He let Arsene Wenger get on with it for 10 years. So if he gets the right person in charge, I think Kroenke can make it work.
Well, Ehab, George says it's hard to get the right persons in. That Liverpool tried for 30 years, Tottenham for 50 years. Is it really that hard? We just discussing the fact that they have made some terrible personal choices. George says it's not deliberate. What is your response?
It is not easy. This is not something that you can go to jobs.com or monster.com and you will have 2,000 resumes in the morning. This is how many top clubs do you have in Europe? How many, like 5 in each league? So 25, 26, and that's it. Everything is run by someone, and even the big clubs cannot find good people to run the clubs for them. Don Raul, and he was the vice president of somebody called Sandro. And
yes,
Sandro,
I said the wrong name, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sandro is still
Sandro Rosell, right?
No. His name was something Sandro, and he is still in courts. Like he has like a pending court dates everywhere. Still, and Don Raul still has a court date for the Neymar transfer case.
Precisely.
They did a lot of shady dealings in Barcelona, and this is the biggest club in the world, or the second biggest with Messi and all these people. So you don't expect for 22 years there was one guy in charge, and he took complete charge of everything, and it was run to a T. Everything. I have numbers that would show you that it is Arsenal FC. It's not Arsenal anymore. The numbers that you're looking at, the numbers that you look at, like what the guy had in plan, when he left, what he left us, money-wise, was amazing. We had a problem with the merchandise sale. In 2009, our merchandise was 40 million. Our game revenue was 90 million. Our match day was 90 million. And the TV was 100 and something million. We had 200 something in revenue. By 2017, we had 486 million in revenue. 200 million of them is merchandise. It's all these shirts that's sold by Ozil and Alexis Sanchez and all these people. And also we had the highest TV revenue of anyone in the league, and still that carried into Emre's time. So, and we had the year that we bought Alexis Sanchez, we bought Ospina, and we spent 76 million cash on players and sold 6 million worth of players, and we had a profit of 5 million. So this club was heading in a great direction, and that's why you cannot get somebody in to do that right away. Now, I understand that he wanted his son to take over, somebody who's in his 60s or 70s now. Is not going to live forever, and he has this loser son that he wants to take over the business, and he likes soccer, so he wants to take over Arsenal. The bad thing is that he should have hired people. That is the worst thing, that he should have hired consultants, but he didn't do that. He wanted to do all by himself, He wanted to prove to daddy that he's a good guy, he's a good boy, he learned, and he can run a club. So look at me, running around and I'm replacing Wenger. And who's this guy who takes control of everything? I can do it myself. I'll show you. It's no science. And this is how it went down to. The Kroenkes ain't bad. Josh is bad, but he's gonna learn eventually, like George said.
Yeah, but Ehab, what's gonna happen to us in the meantime? I hope the Omi has gotten his communication sorted out. What's gonna happen? Because our turnover went from, as you said, from 388 million
in 2018
pounds annually to 341 in 2020. It's going to be less for 2021 because of COVID and no Champions League and very little Europa League just until the semi-final stage. But why is it so hard? No. Just give me 1 second. Why is it so hard to? Are we going to wait until they run this thing in the ground? Omi.
No.
Hold on a second, Ehab. Hold on a second, Ehab.
Go ahead, Omi.
The cash in the 2020 statements, cash was 244 million pounds. They have taken it to 166 million pounds to pay the shortfall. Are they going to run it into the ground before they learn, Omi Javed?
Well, it's not easy to answer that because
Omi, this is the worst you've had it. Byso, are they going to run it? Are we going to let them run it into the ground before things change around?
No, we're not going to let them run it into the ground, but
we have no choice in the matter, do we?
Exactly. You know, the hardest thing to do is to change the ownership of a club. And, you know, these guys are making a business decision, right? They know that something like the ESL is coming. You know, they failed this time around, but they could succeed in 5 years. So why would they sell off an investment that is yet, you know, to yield the profit that they're working towards? You know, so we just have to accept that, look, if it happens, fine, you know, it'll be a pleasant surprise, but we just have to accept that we're still going to have Stan Kroenke, you know, owning this club for the foreseeable future. So there's nothing we can do about the ownership. What we can do is to make sure that we're putting the right pressure on those that are running the club at the moment. You know, whether it's via, you know, fan forums or, you know, having people who are reporting on Arsenal as a club being objective enough to come up with, you know, proper analysis as opposed to running propaganda pieces and you know, covering up, you know, all the shortcomings and making excuses after the excuses for each, you know, awful decision. You know, so that's the only way I feel like we can get a little bit of accountability into this club. You know, having someone who is there to hold the people who are running the club accountable for all the decisions they're taking.
But they're not doing that. But Byso, you're absolutely correct.
Fan dissent, yeah.
But you're absolutely correct. The fans or the big fans even and are not holding Arteta or Edu accountable. In fact, George, Wenger ruler came back. In fact, if you notice, they did not even discuss the 2020 financial statements. It passed. It dropped in like a little sand, like a pebble in the ocean. Nobody spoke about it. And in fact, what we're hearing now is people saying we are going to get Madison, we're going to get Grealish, we're going to get all kinds of people, more money spent. And nobody says, well, how are we going to get the ball from back to front and create more chances? Wenger ruler, maybe you can say something. Maybe your communication has improved. Pakistan is not working today. I don't know why. It's horrible today. Ehab, take it from here. Let me ask my friends to try to get this out.
Now, yeah, okay. Now the thing is, nobody's gonna hold Arteta accountable because it's always been blame by elimination. You know, it's always been the players. Like the only problem was Wenger, then Wenger went away, and the only problem was Ozil, and Ozil went away, and the only problem is Xhaka, and Xhaka's gonna go away. This is it. It's blame by elimination.
Yes.
We're gonna have somebody today that we're gonna blame, then he goes away and nothing gets fixed, and we're gonna find someone else to blame. It's it's easier than taking the time to understand what's going on. I get those people, and nobody's going to blame those people. I said it the first day. I said this: Don Raul, Vinay, and everybody in the front office should be fired.
Mm-hmm.
If I bought Arsenal today, they will be on the curb outside on Seven Sisters on the side by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I mean, it's the incompetent. Imagine you're running a club and you spend that much money and you lose that much money, and you nowhere. You just took a club on that side. If this was a restaurant and George was running it and it lost 150,000, and it lost 150,000, lost half its fans, and now whatever he invests in it, he doesn't get anything back. George would have been fired a long time ago, But I don't know why they.
But let me be the provocateur here. But George doesn't want to fire anybody. Is that what you're saying, George? You think that they should hang on in there? Isn't that what these guys are saying?
No, I'm saying that Arteta needs to go, Edu needs to go, Vinay needs to go. The owners won't be going. What's the point in shouting Kroenke-Out when we know they're not going? It's just the most useless exercise imaginable. We want it run properly. That's as simple as that. And they need it run properly more than we do.
Correct.
I mean, they've got £2 billion at stake here. We've not. What have we got at stake? A bit of enjoyment, a bit of misery. We don't enjoy watching football as much as we used to. We're not going to lose £2 billion. So it's up to them to fix it. And they don't need to be told to fix it. When they get a bill in at the end of this season for £150 million loss, they know that's got to be fixed. They know something has to be done. And they'll have to get on with it and do it because it's their business. And I don't see the point in saying, well, they've got to go. They're not going. They're just not. We can't get out. So I don't see what I don't think they do a good job, but I like the business model. I do. They allow us to spend our own money, plus they give us some extra. That's all you can ask. The fact that we're not doing it well, that's down to them as well. But it's up to them to fix it. We can't fix it. So I think we should be more concentrated on Arteta, Edu, Vinay. Let's point the finger at them because they can go. We can make a difference there. We can teach people that it's them that's making the mistakes. It's not Kroenke. Kroenke's mistake is appointing them. So get rid of them and start again.
But when will that's why this live stream will has limited popularity here, George, because this is not something the fans want to hear. Yet the club is suffering financially. If you want to see a stale spin, look at the last 3 years. And the last 3 years coincides as Ehab quite correctly pointed out, with the end of the tenure of the old senile dictator. He left them with 300 million pounds in cash equivalents in the bank. The turnover was 386 million pounds. There was a profitability of 56 million pounds. Do you know what the losses were going to be this year? There were 50 million pounds last year. Sorry, I speak in dollars myself. But the losses after profit in 2020 was approximately 50 million pounds.
Yeah, Shota, there's something that's going on, and this is something that they talked about. They just slipped by people in May 2020. Now, when Wenger left, there was the debt that's left on the stadium, but it was already allocated. Like, we are getting from Emirates so and so and so on the 6 years. We are getting from Adidas this much on 6 years. We are getting, so it's covered. It was covered. So anyway, this debt was supposed to be paid. When Josh came in, he took a loan from the bank. And paid the first loan, the 425. He consolidated. And so now, if you look at a report from May 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, when nobody had time for this, you would find that the club is 350 million in debt. And they are saying that this was caused because of we are going to get another loss for the 2020, and now 2021 is probably going to be another 150 million. So we're looking around something of $500 million in debt. And to get there from 300 million extra cash and debt already managed, and you know that 2018 was the only year since Stan took over that the profits dropped.
Really?
Not the profits, the revenue dropped. It went all the way. It went down. It went down to 386. It was 460 something.
Because of the Champions League, right? Because we fell out of the
Champions League. Yeah.
Yes.
It went down to 386. Plus, there's a lot of people who weren't attending matches. If you remember the last year of Wenger, so it went down to 386, and at 386, it went down around 80 million. So they used this as a reason that Wenger is not what he used to be, because it went down. And they went on to completely reverse this in 4 years, in 3.5 years. They totally reversed all the profits. Now our revenue is below 200 for the first time since 2006.
Well, we have no idea, because this is a private company, so they don't have to file interim statements or anything. So we have to wait until the year end. And I know that this has this has a lot of fans, and not caring. But if the club continues to suffer losses at this rate, it will be an ulcer, a sore, a bleeding ulcer that the Kroenkes will have to consider either cauterizing, or because it just cannot be healed.
This will not.
I'm using a big word here, but cut it off. It can't be healed.
This will not live long. If you give Arteta 150 million this year, and he gets fired by Christmas or by January, this club will be in a major problem by 2023 or the end of 2022, because we are going to be approaching $1 billion of bad decisions and debt.
Wow.
And they cannot run that. When you have as half of your club worth in debt, banks are going to just take a step back, and they're going to say, no, pay us now. We need the money. We need better payment plan. We need so and so, and you cannot do it. You are Arsenal. If you want to rearrange the debt or reconsolidate, they can do it. But once you get that much debt, they will say, oh, wait. And this is going to be a problem. The club is going to be in real trouble. As I said, Blackburn, Leeds United, Deportivo La Coruña, Parma, Malaga are not bad examples. These Aston Villa, Newcastle, these are clubs that used to be big. These are clubs that used to win the league and get to FA Cup finals and get to European semifinals, and they're gone now. They are gone, and because they made a string of bad decisions that big, and Arsenal are too big to fail. No, this is not the truth. This is not true. If Arsenal goes that far, they will allow them to fail. You cannot be eighth for 3 years in a row and lose about 500 or $300 million or $400 million and still expect everybody to consider you a big club.
Well,
you cannot be.
Ehab, you've been making this point from the very first live stream, and nobody wants to hear. Rangarula, can you say something? Let me hear if your communication has improved, because I have a question for you. Are you with us now? Still not with us, eh? Still not with us. George, the question I was going to put to him, George, in my opinion, Josh, and by the way, there are only four directors of the club now. None of them, I'd say two of them are the dad, Stan, and Josh. Then you have Lord Harris of Peckham. Is that correct? Isn't that what his title is? Guy who is way up in his 70s. Yes, he's been associated with the club for years. And then you have Lewis, who is a non-executive director. So we have two football virgins making the decisions. George, is that a good recipe? Kroenke-Out, Kroenke-in, or Kroenke-Out? Is that a good recipe for this club? Two absolute virgins when it comes to English soccer?
Well, we know it's not a good recipe, and I'll keep saying it. That's the problem. Who they have running the club. Not the running of the club, who they've appointed. It's a chicken and an egg. Ultimately, the book stops with them. They appointed these chancers, but they're not going to pay the price by selling the club. So let's just get someone in who can do a better job and hope for the best. That's all you can do. I don't see that there is a simple answer, and the answer certainly isn't try to force them to sell the club, because how do you do that? The only way you can make them consider selling the club is to make it less and less valuable by eroding its foundations till they think, oh, well, we've got to get out of here. So we're going to do that to our own club. Make it worse, protest, fly airplanes. For what? For something that's not going to change. Kroenke-Out is the most ridiculous process that the fans can possibly come up with and back. You're entitled to think they're doing a bad job, but they're not going. So the only way you can affect it is to make their business a bad prospect and then want to get out. And then it's now a bad prospect, so who would want to buy it? You know what I mean? You can't win. We can't win.
Well, George, we spoke about this last week. We're not going to go over the ground, but there are people who want the brand. There are all kinds of people who want the brand because it's worth something, nearly £1 billion.
Yeah, it's worth something, and the worse, the more of a doldrum it's in, the cheaper they can pick it up for. So
exactly,
what we're going to do is we're going to organise protests so that someone else can buy the club at a reduced value and hope that they don't borrow all the money to buy it and use the club to pay it back. We don't even know who we're going to get. We know the Kroenkes have got it. We know they don't have to go to the bank and borrow £2 billion to buy it. And they know they don't have to take the money out of Arsenal to service a £2 billion loan that they've had to put in to buy it. But we don't know that about anybody else who's going to come in. We don't. Who are we hoping comes in? The Saudi royal family? That's it.
George, this is the nature of our fans, and they'll completely, and I don't want to be. I'm trying not to be negative here, but there is the idea that Arsenal cannot fail, will never fail. This is doom mongering. These losses that we have been talking about, which are recorded from the financial statements, it's like, well, it will happen. It's completely foreign to us. We'll never do a Aston Villa. Aston Villa, Randy Lerner bought Aston Villa in 2006 for £64 million. And he brought Martin O'Neill in. You all remember 3 times there were 6. And he bought players like John Carew, Stilian Petrov, then towards the end, Nigel Rio-Coker, Ashley Young. You all remember those players? Ashley Young ended up at United. They were a team to be reckoned with. But as Ehab says, you keep coming 8th, never making the Champions League. Granted, he didn't have as much money as the Kroenkes. But by 2016, he stopped buying. 6 days before the 2010 season, Martin O'Neill walked out on the club because he was doing no transfers. He was sick and tired of losing money. Our club is doing, in 1 year alone, they lost £54 million. We lost that £54 million in 2020. Don't you see where I'm going? Omi, am I wrong? Am I off the charts? Don't we see that Kroenke-Out without a change in these managers who are destroying the club? That's, that's a fool's game, isn't it, sir?
You can hear me now, right?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, I would say that it is a fool's game because you kind of basically go in a cycle that where you say, okay, we make one wrong decision, then we say, okay, now we have to basically get rid of it, and then we make another bad decision, and there you go again. But I think as far as Kroenke is concerned, I think the major issue is not. I think it's not that they are not doing what we want them to do. Basically, I think it's also that the intention that with which they are doing is kind of not the right thing, because I think the decisions that have been made are made more in the sense of that which one is more popular, which one will be more popular towards the fans, rather than which one will be the right decision. And I think there are a lot of decisions made in the last 3 years that basically shout populism rather than the right ones. And I think this is a major issue right now. And as long as this thing continues, Arsenal will suffer, and they will suffer on the pitch, on the football pitch, because let's say someone sanctioned £72 million for Pepe. Why? Maybe not because they think that he can be the best right winger in the world, but rather because spending 72 million shows intent. It shows that we are serious about it, and it shows that that we can basically tell the fans, okay, that we are spending money, and you can be happy with us. So I think these kind of small things, they one by one, they gradually build up into one big mess, and I think that's what we have right now. And I do not think that if we move from Kroenke, this is going to change, because let's suppose if we get rid of Kroenke, I don't know who's going to come in. But let's suppose.
Omi, I'm going to interrupt you. I disagree with you. Southampton had a change of ownership, and it was a completely different model they pursue. Young players sold to big clubs. They're profitable here. They bring a new crop of youngsters. They try to keep in the league. Aston Villa sold to some Chinese investors. They took a completely business approach. They took them out of the championship, and look where they are today. No, I refuse. I think that we cannot take the position that change won't make the club better. But continuing the same policy and expecting the same results, is what is the problem. We are, and Byso, the football virgins are keeping Arteta. They're keeping Edu. They want to bring players that are popular. What prospect is that for the club next year? You're breaking up.
Man, sometimes I think our fans just want to believe that the club is going in the right direction, and they've talked themselves into a corner, and for them is like Arteta or bust. So they really want to believe that so much that they don't want to just phantom any other situation that Arsenal could be in apart from having Arteta at the helm and getting things right. It's a fantasy, I believe, but it's gonna help everyone if it does come to reality that Arteta is the one to take us forward. But to be honest, the fans don't have anything more else to go on except optimism, and I believe that too much optimism is going into delusion, but. Hey, what can the fans do apart from be optimistic? For me, personally, what I want to see happen is not so much Arteta leaving, but the guys behind him. That is Vinay and Edu, because I believe if those guys are replaced by fully competent professionals, they can keep Arteta in line. And if Arteta is not delivering the results, they're not going to keep him on the job because they are buddies. They're going to take that right decision, and they're going to make sure that they get someone who is fully competent. Like, for example, if we get rid of Arteta today, do you trust Vinay to go out there and appoint the right person? I don't.
I don't trust him. I trust him as
I
far
don't.
as I
And for me, it's a bigger problem than Arteta even. And for me, it's so as long as I know that I'd rather much see him out, but I know also that there's a bigger problem, and it's with the organization behind him. And so long as we have those guys behind him, I really don't have much faith. I mean, let's take for example, I'm digressing here, but let's take for example the women's team, right? We had a coach who announced and gave notice to the club months in advance that he was leaving.
You're right.
We're almost in July, and we have not appointed a new coach.
And women are voting with their feet, going to other clubs, by the way.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. We are in a situation where a lot of our core players, are waiting to see who that next coach is to make that decision. Some of them are on their way out. Some are deciding to go out.
Yes.
So we've lost at least 4 first team players.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And we still don't have a coach in place. So now imagine what these guys will do on the men's side.
Shambles.
I don't have any hope. It's a shambles. I don't have any hope.
Byso. George, I'm going to go to George this time. George, what is it going to take for the fans to realize this? George, for example, I will tell you how hard it is. Scott Willis, I think his name is Scott. His last name is Willis. He said Stats Bomb. I'm going to give him credit here. He did a piece of research. I'm sure it took him a lot of time, which shows that Xhaka is tops in progressing the ball for every 90 minutes. Did you see that piece? And then Partey is next. And it was good that he put it there, because sometimes, you and I have, our podcast don't have a very good, strong opinion on Partey. But the figures show that Partey. And then, of course, Leno is last, and so on and so forth. But, George, you and I know that fans refuse to accept that Xhaka was our key player. And so in much the same way that they're going to refuse to accept that the old dictator, senile dictator, was keeping this club afloat. Okay, he's not coming back. But what's it gonna take for them to start realizing that Kroenke is per se is not the problem. They're business people, they're not football people. We need real football people running the club.
Nothing. They're never going to realize it.
You know you're going to say something like that.
If you can't convince the fans that Arteta was wrong to drop our best player, how can you convince them of anything? I mean, that's the simplest job in the world.
True.
There's Mesut Ozil. There's his record. Watch him every week. He's our best player. And when you've got huge swathes of the fan base saying he's rubbish, would be better without him, you've lost the ability to convince those fans of anything reasonable. If they can't do that simple job, if you can't tell them that we've gone worse since Arsene Wenger left, if they still blame him for the state we're in, what chance have you got? The fans are stupid. You're not going to convince them. We're not. This podcast's not. Arseblog's not. If he would eventually come on board and put his shoulder to the wheel. We've just got to accept that fans all think that they have a simple solution. All you have to do is spend the money wisely on the right players and we can challenge for the league. Like every club isn't trying to do exactly that.
Yes.
The solution is to do things well. And every club is trying to do that. To try and persuade the fans of anything is a fool's errand. And I mean, you just try and convince an idiot on Twitter that Xhaka's a good player. Are you going to be able to do it? No, you'll never change their minds. You show them all the stats, all the facts, they won't have it. So where do you go? What's the even point of trying to convince the fans of anything? They'll make their own minds up and they'll all be wrong, most of them. And this is the problem we have with the club today because the guy at the top listened to the idiots at the bottom and got rid of the only man that made us a special club.
Yes, I'd say that's 400 million.
And now you're saying, like, how do we now get rid of Kroenke when we, the fan base, convinced him to do the thing that destroyed his business? It's a circle, and it's like a vortex, and it's getting worse and worse and worse, and we're getting sucked into it. And it's just a joke at the moment. And you look at, like I say, imagine going on Twitter telling people that the Kroenkes are going to invest basically 400 million of their own money into the club this summer. Imagine doing that, having 250,000 followers, and he'll have more followers tomorrow because the idiots will like what he's saying and they'll be keen to believe that absolute nonsense. They'll believe what they read on the internet because they want to believe it, not because there's any vestige of truth or any small possibility of it being true, because they want to believe it. Just like they wanted to believe that Ozil was the problem. They wanted to believe Arsene Wenger was the problem. They want to believe absolute bollocks and let them get on with it.
Well, you know, Bengarula can identify with you. I don't know if it's communication. He had the temerity to tweet this week that we should get Reece James. That's his first name. From he was just being, mischievous. From Chelsea, and you should see the millions of idiots were coming after him. Some of them are Arsenal fans, most of them Chelsea fans. But and I tweeted that if they had tweeted that we should, you remember when Willian was coming and David Luiz are coming, there were thousands of Arsenal fans jumping for joy. Bengarola, what? Don't you think George is right? We will never persuade the vast majority of fans that the course we are on now with these people running the club is a road to disaster. Wow, I would die to hear you, but the communication is horrible. Omi, maybe you want to pick it up there for him. Can we convince any of these people? Can we convince the fans in Pakistan. By the way, people, I have I'm people like Omi are important. The international contributed nearly 40 million pounds more to the revenue than match day revenue. So there you have it. Omi, George said goodbye. Keep going.
Yes, okay. So I do believe it. I do believe that whatever George said is the right thing because I mean, as an Arsenal fan, I think we are proud of Arsenal and we will always be. But I think I can never be proud of the Arsenal fans. Not now, not ever, and I don't know if this is going to change. The reason is simple because I think that we as a fan should recognize the values that club has, and we should recognize the people that are doing the right things and the positive things for that club. And when you do not recognize that, and you basically slander them, and you try to basically kick them out of the club, I think that is where you lose all the respect. And I think Arsenal fans have done that, and they have done that for to their, in over 100 years of history, their best ever manager in terms of trophies won, in terms of tenure that he had, and everything. Uh, and they basically kicked him out basically. So that is something that I cannot get over. And as far as the fans is concerned, I completely agree. You cannot basically make them happy, and I think we should not go towards that path of trying to make them happy as well. I think that because what they see, they completely see it in terms of let's just say a bragging right, or from standpoint of looking out the coolest in the bunch basically. But you cannot make football decisions on the basis of that. You should make football decisions on the basis of the money that you have, the ambition that you have, and what is your goal. And I think that always has to be kind of long term rather than short term. But the decisions that you make for that long term has to be right. And when those decisions are not right, your long term goals are always going to be questioned, and then they are going to put pressure on you in the short term. And I think this is what is happening right now when you basically see Mikel Arteta and his project. Of course, a year ago, many would have said, okay, he should be given 3 years. But what has happened in that year? Half of that population won't allow him, won't agree with that thing that he should be given 3 years. So I think as a owner of the club, you should make a decision that is going to basically improve the football and improve the results on the pitch, and not how it is going to impact the fans. And I think this is the one thing where we are doing the wrong thing. The Kroenkes are doing the wrong thing because they are more concerned with how the fans are going to look rather than how the results are going to look. Because at the end of the day, they do know that when they lose fans, they are going to lose the entries to the gate, and they are going to lose the stadium fans in the stadium, and this is going to impact their revenue. And I think these things, these small fears, are basically driving their decisions, and this is what they have to get themselves out of. And and the second thing I think is that they have to, and they have,
I'm sorry, Omi, but they're not
sorry?
getting out of it. That's the problem I'm having. They're getting deeper into it, it appears.
Yes, they're not getting out of it. They are not getting out of it. They are not getting out of it because the people they have appointed at the top of the hierarchy are not the football people, are not the football guys. They are not. They have not been at Arsenal for quite long, and they don't know how and how to basically run them and how to basically take them forward. And the second thing is that the values that Arsenal has always associated with the club, they are not following that either. And these things they kind of accumulate towards where we are right now.
Vengarula, you're back. I see you like you have on a different screen. Perhaps you change your video, your device? Can let me hear you to see if I can bring you back in.
Yeah. Can you hear me
Oh,
now?
yes, this is beautiful. This is far better than before. You've been listening.
Thank you.
I could see you listening intensely on your phone, even when I try to bring you in.
Yeah.
George left, but he left to the point that we cannot convince the fans. And you can see, I can tell you. I mean, I did a poll, and you guys all retweeted it. And your combined following is relatively significant. But there are 50 people who responded. Yet this is a relatively important issue. Can we convince people that the present course being followed by the Kroenkes is a disaster? Your thoughts, Wenger ruler? Wow. Started and then he froze. Byso, I'm going to take him out. What about you? Do you think that this present course, can we change it? Can we influence the fans? George says no. They're not going to change. Your thoughts?
Sorry, I didn't get the full question.
George said we cannot. The fans won't change. They'll continue to follow the Pied Piper of Hamelin. I'm just paraphrasing him. With their 250,000 followers who think that the Kroenkes will spend 400 million pounds. They will still believe that Wenger was the problem. They will still believe that Xhaka is the worst player on the field.
Yeah, nothing can change that for sure. Yeah, and I mean, I absolutely agree with George. I think for me, and I was offline for like a week, and I came back and I saw that Arsenal has this 250 plus million to spend this summer, and I was quite surprised because we hear that every 2 years in the summer we have this cash at hand that we're going to spend on players, and we end up not spending all of those amounts. Yeah. Not that we're not spending, but we're not spending splashing 200 million every summer. So I'm a little bit skeptical about that because there's a precedent for every summer getting this news. I don't know whether it's to kind of like manage the expectations of the fans so that they're kind of cool throughout the summer, and then by deadline day they sign someone and everyone is happy that at least we signed one person. It wasn't like a total bust for the window. So I really don't know what to believe about that. But at the same time, I realized that the Kroenkes have got to be looking at the situation with Arsenal today to say, this club has finished 8th back-to-back. They're going into the next season with other clubs improving on themselves. We still have a rookie coach. We don't know if the coach is the problem and the reason why they're finishing 8th back-to-back, or is the players. Now, for now, it seems to me that they are convinced that the players is the problem. So what do they do about that? They have to invest. If they don't invest and we slide further, guess what's happening? When the ESL comes back around, no one's going to invite Arsenal to join the ESL. Mm-hmm. So in order for us to remain in that ESL conversation, we have to be in and around Europe, and to keep our status as part of the elites and the world football. So I believe that they will spend, but I don't know if they're going to spend 250 million as the media are reporting. Well, again, now when we say, okay, this is what we're going to spend, who are we spending it on is actually more important, right? Mm-hmm. And when you're hearing rumors about us spending 40 plus million on players like Ben White, you're wondering, what is Arsenal doing? Why are we spending this amount on this player, who by all means, is a good player, but he's still very young. He has just one season in top flight football. Mm-hmm. So it's not like we're buying that experience, okay? And we already have a backline that is crying out for experience. Same also, we have a young defender who has been on loan for the last 2 years on our books. So it makes me wonder, the people who are making these.
Who is that? Mavropanos?
Saliba. No, Saliba.
Oh, the big Saliba debate.
Exactly, right? Mm-hmm. So there's Scott, you referenced him earlier. He did a comparative analysis between Saliba and Ben White as well. You could say that Saliba was a superior player to Ben White, based on stats. I know that, for center backs, it's not a good thing to use stats to compare them. I prefer the eye test on that.
Yeah.
But, for me, Saliba passes everything, and he has passed a lot of the hurdles that has been put in front of him. He has never had, since I've known he existed, right? Never had gone through a period where he had really bad performances. He's always in and around the best performances in the club he has been. Yes, we don't know whether he'll fit right into Arsenal, but we already have this asset, right? We already have a team that is solid defensively. May not be the best, but it's solid.
You have Holding.
We
you
have a problem. We have a problem with constructing an attack, right? Having a proper identity. What's our midfield going to be like? So why are we spending 40 plus million on a Ben White, who is not a significant upgrade on a Saliba? So those are the things that you see and you're wondering, who are the guys making these decisions? And do we trust them to take this club forward?
Well, I'm going to try to wrap this up. It's an hour now.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, in the poll that we did was kind of quite significant. So I'm going to throw the results into both your lap. 48% said their Kroenkes are solely responsible. 50% said they're partially responsible. And there was a 5% who said, "Get out of here, Shatter. You, I give a hell what you're talking about." But where do you fall, Omi? Where do you fall at finally? There's 48%, 50%. So it was quite significant. Those two were two categories: partial, fully, solely, respectively.
Well, I'm more in partial, but there are things that I would like to point out, and that is basically that there are some big decisions that they had to make, but they have not made them right. And so if you look at it in that way, then you can say, okay, it is solely their responsibility. They are the ones who basically, brought us in this mess. Yes. But I feel that there are other aspects to it as well than purely Kroenkes. It's the fan pressure as well, and it's kind of Wenger coming to his, the end of days, and kind of then there's a question of Ivan Gazidis as well, and the role that he played. So I think when you basically analyze it, there are a lot of people that you basically have to put in a discussion, and you have to talk about them. Okay, what role he played, what role did he play, and so on and on. But overall, at the end of the day, you can basically come up to one conclusion and say, okay, that whatever people we are going to talk about, they were always the appointments of Stan Kroenke, and at the end of the day, it's everything. Yes, and Josh. And at the end of the day, everything that has happened to Arsenal Football Club has happened because of the decision that they have made. So you can say that,
so the buck stops there, in your opinion.
Yes, but I think that the answer to that question is way more than Stan Kroenke. But everything stems out from their decisions. So you can basically say that, okay, it is Stan Kroenke at the end of the day who is responsible, because he is the man with the power, and with power comes accountability and authority. So that's how I feel regarding this question.
And finally, you, Byso.
I mean,
Stan, I'm gonna leave this to you with one comment. Okay. Obviously, Stan will never fire his son. His son is going to be the one who inherits the empire. I think he's his only son. So, what at the end of the day, is it partial or solely? What is your view?
Well, if we say the buck stops at the owner's table, then we have to say, he's solely responsible, because in as much as they don't have the experience or an idea about how to run a proper football club and who is, it's left to them to apply accountability. And in applying accountability is about, okay, looking at what's happening and making sure that a mistake is not, made for the next time. I know we'll always look at a club like Chelsea because we know all of us here know when Abramovich came into Chelsea and how, he turned Chelsea into a revolving door of managers, right? In a search for success, right? And it's because they can afford to do that. And I'm not saying that Arsenal has to do that, but that is the only way you can build a culture of success. The culture of success rhetoric surrounding Arsenal has always been the players, the players, the players. But no, it's not really the players. It's those who are running the club at the executive level. That's where we need the success, because those are the guys who are going to bring in the right players with the right mentality, making sure that we don't tank the value of our assets, making sure that we are able to sell our assets for good money to keep the club flush with enough operating cash. And they're not doing that, right? And for me, that's where the problem is. And when we're seeing a manager who is failing, identifying what it is that, identifying the proper manager, I would say, like the example I gave earlier, saying that, in January of 2018, we gave Mesut Ozil a mega contract, and 4 months down the line, we hire a manager who does not use a number 10. How are we self-destructing? We just literally hit the self-destruct button right there.
Well,
so these are the kind of decisions that we should not be having at that level. So the only way we can build a culture of success is by making sure that we have the right people at executive level. Those are the guys that will bring in the right players that we need. Then we can see the success on the pitch. And if it's not working, they move fast to make sure that they correct the mistake that they've made. We don't move fast enough. We are very lethargic and we're very hesitant in making decisions. And that hesitation is what has brought us to where we are today.
Well, procrastination is
the
thief of time.
At the end of the day, stops at the stand. It's not their fault majorly, because they are hiring people to make those decisions and they're not interfering with those decisions, right? But at the end of the day, they are the ones hiring those guys, right? So if we say ultimately it's their club, it's their responsibility, right? So
I think I'm going to leave on this note. There's no simplistic answer to this question. However, the whole Kroenke-Out, let's just call it Kroenke-Out slogan and goal completely negates the role of the managers who have been implementing the guidelines and the policies of Stan and his son. And the example that Byso gives is relevant. Of course, no, I suppose they didn't legislate for what's his name leaving, and Mislintat going, and then Raul taking over, and then Raul as part of the team that got Emery, and Gazidis was part of that interviewing team. And so was Sven Mislintat I understand was part of the recruitment.
Yeah, it was a 3-man team, but they were not unanimous on Unai Emery. And unfortunately, Raul got his way by having Unai Emery be the one who was appointed at the end. It wasn't a unanimous decision.
Good point there. But the essence of it is that the Kroenkes, if you simplify that, simply saying the Kroenkes are the bane of the club, you forget the role of the managers who have made a pig's head of the whole management of the club. And it continues to this day. So it's not as simplistic. And we can't get rid of the owners. I think George is absolutely right. We can't get rid of the owners unless they decide to just get rid of this bleeding wound. But we can certainly change the managers. I think that is the note. Thank you very much, guys. This is, I think, a fair reflection of the thought process today. And we'll certainly try to reproduce this on my blog as a podcast. And people can go back and see this on YouTube. We are not popular. We're just a startup operation, but I'm urge listeners and viewers to subscribe so that we get some sort of ranking. We'll never get a high ranking on YouTube. But if you believe in this club and believe in an alternate voice, you'll never know. But I'm realistic. This is the whole point of this live stream. We have to be realistic. Without voices like ours, and the more people like us speaking up, there'll be no improvement, at least on the fan base level. George is right. Who will be at least appealing to those who are open-minded enough? So I beg of you, I plead of you, subscribe to this channel on YouTube. Thank you very much, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Until next time. Bye.
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 This concludes another edition of the Positively Uncensored Arsenal podcast. Show your appreciation of our podcast by subscribing and clicking the like button wherever you listen. This really helps in growing our support among honest and biased fans who recognize that Wenger's legacy is fundamental. Free-flowing attacking football by a club with integrity and class. Thanks for listening.